The Johnson Wax Program, Words at War with Clifton Fadiman. The makers of Johnson's Wax for home and industry, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, proudly presents Words at War, one of the most widely discussed programs in America, dramatizations of the most representative books to come out of this great world conflict. And with us again to introduce our program is the well-known radio personality, author, and critic, Clifton Fadiman. Mr. Fadiman.
Good evening. Tonight, Words at War presents in dramatic terms the gravest social problem facing America today. The return to civilian society of that 1/10 of the population which the other 9/10 have used to fight a war. After Jock Costello brings you a brief message from our sponsor, I'll tell you more about tonight's program.
Folks, when you apply wax to the various surfaces around your home, I wonder if you realize how many different purposes you're serving. I'd like to mention 4 important ones, and I'll be brief. First, you're practicing conservation. Johnson's Wax, regularly applied, gives protection against wear, makes your things last longer. Second, you're adding rich beauty to every room of your home to be enjoyed by your entire family. Third, you're saving yourself hours of work all year because dirt does not readily cling to a Johnson Wax surface. And fourth, which you may not fully realize, you're helping to protect the health of your family. A waxed home is a clean home, and a clean home is a healthful one. So it's definitely profitable to invest a very small amount of money and a modest amount of your time to enjoy all these advantages made possible by a regular use of Johnson's Wax, paste, liquid, or cream. All right, Mr. Fadiman.
Tonight's Words at War program is based on Willard Waller's book, The Veteran Comes Back, the story of the returning soldier. Remember, the veteran who comes home is a social problem, the major social problem of the post-war world. No man could have a better moral claim to the consideration of his fellows, and no man could have a better right to bitterness. How are we going to give G.I. Joe his rightful place in society? Listen, the discussion has already begun. The debate is raging. In Congress, the newspapers, over the radio, in union halls, Chamber of Commerce meetings, on street corners. A debate to find a solution to the problem of G.I. Joe when Joe comes home.
I propose that the boys coming back get every consideration. Absolutely and positively, I am for it. Always have been. Always will be. Look at my record. Nothing is too good for G.I. Joe.
Motion seconded.
Motion approved.
Motion carried.
Dear Joe, G.I. Joe, nothing's too good for G.I. Joe.
He fought for us. He died for us. Now we'll fight for him.
Hey, fellas, listen to me.
There is no one closer to our hearts than G.I. Joe. He is the one to whom everyone in the nation owes a debt of gratitude. He is the one who is making the sacrifices, his life, if need be, on every battlefront of the world. It is him who we must honor, cherish, protect, our G.I. Joe!
Hey, fellas, wait a minute. I got you. Yes, sirree. Let's make it right with G.I. Joe.
But how?
By giving him a bonus.
$100.
$200. $300.
Will a bonus be enough?
We'll throw in a Bill of Rights. And a voice in the government. Quiet. Oh, pardon me. I mean his rightful place in society. $500. $600. $700. $700. $800. $800. Make it $1,000. $1,000.
Dear Joe, G.I. Joe, nothing's too good
you guys. I've listened long enough. How about giving me a chance? I got something to say, too. What does he want? I'll tell you who I am. I'm the guy you're talking about. The guy whose face you've spread on all your war bond posters. The guy who's doing the fighting and the dying, and incidentally, the guy whom nobody is bothered to ask for an opinion. Yeah. I'm G.I. Joe. Sorry to bust up your nice, chummy meeting, friends. But I've been listening to your discussion for a long time. And the least I can say about it is, I don't like it.
You don't like it? Well, we're doing it for you, for your own welfare.
Yeah, maybe, but I still don't like it.
But why? Why?
Because you've overlooked one important point, friends. One very important point.
What?
Today, more than at any time in history, the veteran is a threat to society.
Stopping somebody. No, let him talk, gentlemen. Let's hear what he's got to say.
I heard you say before that nothing was too good for G.I. Joe. That sounds familiar, fellow citizens. Did you ever hear this poem by Kipling? It's called Tommy Atkins. I picked it up in a library in London. I went into a theater as sober as could be. They gave a drunk civilian room, but hadn't room for me. They sent me to the gallery, around the music halls. But when it comes to fighting, Lord, they'll shove me in the stalls. For it's Tommy this and Tommy that and Tommy wait outside. But it's special train for Tommy when the troop ship's on the tide.
What is that supposed to prove?
It proves, friends, that during any war in history, nothing is too good for the veteran. After the war, the veteran's good for nothing. But this time the boys aren't coming back to selling apples, and they're not coming back to charity. This time, if we don't get what we want, if we don't get what we've been promised, if we don't get what we deserve, you can kiss your democracy goodbye. I'm prepared to prove my point with pages from history written in blood, with records of the veterans' anger. Today, I've come to testify before the nation, to call witnesses.
It's against Clause 2, Section 5. Let him talk, gentlemen. We want to hear what he's got to say.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. Call your witnesses.
All right. My first witness is Private Jeremiah Smith.
My name is Jeremiah Smith. I was a tinsmith before the war. Worked in Philadelphia, where I had my own shop. Fought in the Revolutionary War. It was on October 19th, 1781, that we heard the news. The war was over, and we were to be demobilized. The news was met with sullen resistance.
Demobilized? I'll be hanged if I'll be demobilized while receiving my pay.
Give us our pay and we'll go home, and not before.
Yes, give us our pay. We're not beggars. We're entitled to it. We fought for it.
Justice! We will get justice from Congress.
On to Philadelphia.
If they don't give us our pay, we'll take it by force.
When we reached Philadelphia, we constituted a body of 300 fully armed troops. Together with the Philadelphia garrison, we marched on the Continental Congress. It was mutiny. Finally, Congress was forced to remove from Philadelphia to Princeton, and the mutiny died. A little later, we were discharged, shortchanged, and swindled, and the speculators reaped the harvest. It was only because America was young, and there were new frontiers to be explored, that counter-revolution was averted.
Have you anything to add to your testimony, Private Smith?
Yes. I only hope that the veterans of future wars will receive better treatment from the people of the United States.
Did you hear that? Private Smith hopes that the veterans of future wars will receive better treatment from the people of the United States. Did they? I call my next witness Corporal Rufus Bowers.
I fought in the war between the states, on the Confederate side. You Yankees up north will call me a rebel, but to the people of the South, my people, I was a soldier. After we surrendered, you people in the North imposed your will upon the South. Well, In 1867, we held a meeting.
Now I ask you men, how long are we going to stand for this? How long are we going to let the carpetbaggers and crooked politicians tell us what to do? Is that what we fought for in the war? No! You bet it isn't. Does anybody care what happens to the veterans? No! Has anybody given us jobs? No! Has anybody given us land? No! No! If we want to keep from starving, it's up to us veterans to take matters into our own hands.
You said it has.
What do you propose? A new organization has been formed recently, organized to relieve the injured and the oppressed, especially the widows and orphans of Confederate soldiers. I propose we join this organization and fight with them for the restoration of the South.
The organization we joined was the Ku Klux Klan. The whole South became the Invisible Empire. Our leaders were our officers. Our methods were force, violence, and rule by terror.
Get that dirty carpetbagger!
Kill the Negroes!
We rode through the night, setting fire to the homes of poor whites and Negroes, driving them from their land. We soaked wooden crosses with kerosene and set them ablaze to spread fear throughout the countryside. We killed. And in the end, we succeeded. The old order was restored. In a different form, maybe, but restored. Now I know it was a mistake. We didn't help the South, and we didn't help ourselves. But I also know that in those days we were bitter enough to follow anybody who promised us salvation. I can only hope that the veterans of future wars, if there be future wars, will receive better treatment and a greater understanding from the people of the United States.
And did they? Well, let's see.
Pencils. Buy a pencil, please. We'll buy a pencil. Anybody want a pencil? Please buy a pencil and help a veteran.
Oh, can't you look where you're going, you old bum?
Excuse me, lady.
You've torn my stockings.
Well, I guess you're lucky you have legs, lady.
I'll report you to the police. That's what I'll do. The nerve of these bums. You can't go anywhere.
Pencils. Buy a pencil, please. Please buy a pencil and help a veteran.
Apples.
Buy a pencil, please, sir.
Apples. Oh. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Charlie. How's it coming? Selling any today?
I was hoping on picking up $1. Thought I'd bring some milk home to the kid for a change. But I guess today's not the day.
Yeah, it's tough. It's cold out today. Must be close to zero.
Yeah. Just like that night in the Argonne.
Yeah. Those were the days. We were heroes then, huh, Charlie?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way we took care of the veterans. And this is the way some of the veterans took care of themselves after the bitterness had a chance to take root and spread like a disease.
Yes, sir? What can I do for you? Is there anything you want? I'm closing up now.
This is a holdup. Hand over the dough.
No, please don't shoot. I'm an old man. Please, Mr.
I said hand it over.
But it isn't here. I took it to the bank.
Open that cash register. Open it! Now hand it over. And don't make a move or I'll plug you. You dirty little profiteer. Getting rich while other guys were doing the fighting for you.
Help!
Get dirty little rat! This'll fix you!
Yeah. We took care of them all right. We taught them how to kill. And then we turned them loose to starve.
This is Clifton Fadiman, bringing you another Words at War program in behalf of the makers of Johnson's Wax. Tonight, Willard Waller's book, The Veteran Comes Back. We've heard G.I. Joe make the blunt statement that today, more than at any time in history, the veteran is a threat to society and its democratic institutions, unless he can be successfully renaturalized into his native land. We've heard from two witnesses, a veteran of the Revolutionary War and one from the Civil War, corroborating the evidence. We've seen what happened to the veteran after World War I. Now the remaining witnesses are ready to testify. Our program continues as G.I. Joe says.
My next witness is Private Mike Haggerty.
I'm Mike Haggerty. I fought with the AEF in 1918, and I marched with the BEF in 1932. Maybe some of you guys have forgotten what the BEF was. Well, let me refresh your memory. In 1932, the bonus was still unpaid, and the veterans were pretty sore about it. We had a right to be. We were broke. We had no jobs. Many of us were on relief. Our bonus certificates were pledged to the limit. And let me tell you, brother, we were pretty desperate.
They said we fought the war to make the world safe for democracy. Now I say we'll have to fight another war to get paid for our fighting. Let's march to Washington and demand payment from Congress.
In May of 1932, the first veteran contingent left Portland, Oregon. Well, that was the beginning of the BEF, the Bonus Expeditionary Force. We traveled in old jalopies, hitched rides, and rode the rails. And from every state, veterans came to join us. By the time we reached Washington, we were 10,000 strong. And we paraded on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Give us our bonus! Give us our bonus! Give us our bonus! Give us our bonus! Give us our bonus!
Soon there were 20,000 of us camped at Anacostia Flats near the Capitol. Our wives and children come down, and we build our shacks and lean-tos.
The way it looks right now, buddy, we'll be here until 1945.
Yeah, we made up our minds. We were going to stay there until 1945, if necessary. But, of course, we never figured they'd use the Army to drive us out. The big push began on Bloody Thursday, July 28th. Troops from Fort Myer Infantry, cavalry, and 5 tanks.
Here it comes! Now remember, hold your ground! Hold your ground! They're using tear gas! Get the kids out of the way! Tear gas! Somebody take away the kids!
Those are the facts. And that's not all.
Wait a minute, G.I. Joe. We've heard enough.
We'll see to it that there won't be another repetition of the bonus march.
Oh, let's go home. We're only wasting time.
Wait, there are more witnesses. I'm sure you'll find their testimony interesting. What has happened in the United States, you see, isn't the worst. A few outbreaks here and there, but on the whole, things have been quiet. No real threat to democracy has developed so far. But in other countries, it was different. Quite different. I call my next witness, Sergeant Albert Gérard.
I am Albert Gérard, a veteran of France. After the First World War, I joined the Croix de Feu, that is, the Cross of Fire, an organization of French veterans. We were hungry and jobless, and had lost faith in the people of France, and the Croix de Feu promised us a way out. In 1930, we began to intervene in politics. We allied ourselves with the fascist organizations of Italy and Germany, and installed French fascism, which sold out France to the enemy.
I am Corporal Hans Baumann, a veteran of Germany and a member of the elite guard. In 1918, we lost the war, but kept the cause. The people gave us nothing. But there was a man who did. We followed that man and produced the counter-revolution.
Meine deutschen Volksgenossen, Männer und Frauen, heute gehört uns Deutschland, morgen die ganze Welt. Sieg! Heil! Sieg! Heil!
name is Luigi Romano. We, the veterans of Italy, marched with Mussolini and Rome and helped establish the fascisti.
G.I. Joe, if you're trying to prove that our veterans will behave like Germans, you're crazy.
The bonus march was a mistake.
Our veterans will never act like thugs and bullies. They'll never make war against their fellow citizens.
It is clear, ladies and gentlemen, that this man doesn't know what he's talking about. He is bitter, naturally, but that will pass away. When he comes home and finds his loved ones waiting for him, all the bitterness will evaporate.
Evaporate? Don't count on it. We're a democracy and will remain a democracy. You hope. Our veterans won't behave like German bullies and Italian thugs. You think not? Well, let me tell you something. Armies are strangely alike. When it comes to war, there's little difference between army-made men. There's little difference between veterans of times and places. And there is no difference in the bitterness. I told you you've overlooked one important point, my fine civilian friends. You've overlooked what it means to be a soldier. You know one of the first things the Army does to you? It destroys your individual will.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Squad, up! Right, wait! Hey, what's the matter with you, Simpkins? Are you asleep? Didn't you hear me say right face? When I say right face, you right face.
But, Sergeant, I thought...
Never mind what you thought. In the Army, you're not supposed to think. You're supposed to follow orders. Do you understand? Follow orders!
No, in the Army, you're not supposed to think. Take 4 or 5 years of that and see what happens. And take 4 or 5 years of being away from home.
Come on, brace up, kid. Come on, it isn't as bad as all that.
Don't worry about me, Mac. I guess I just feel blue, that's all.
Sure, I know. You're lonely. We all are. It's all right, kid.
No, it's not all right. It's not all right. I'd just as soon be dead as stay in this hole another day. I'd just as soon be dead.
Yeah, loneliness. The kind you've never felt in your life. And fear and horror.
The shells kept digging up the dead. We buried them, and the shells came again, and we had to rebury them. The bodies smelled, and the stink drove us all crazy. We kept reburying the bodies, and the German guns kept digging them up.
The plane crashed. I pulled the pilot out. He didn't have no head.
My buddy was killed on the road. And the passing traffic mashed his body as flat as wallpaper.
The bomb hit our sick bay, and pieces of human flesh were embedded in the steel walls of our ship. We kept finding those pieces, and it drove us nuts.
That's not so pretty to listen to, is it? Are you squirming now? Yeah, maybe you'll squirm even more when you hear how the guys at the front feel about their buddies back home.
While we're out here fighting and dying, those guys back home are making the dough. Guys no different than us with nice fat jobs. Boy, but I like to lay my hands on them.
Next on the hating list are the profiteers. The boys who are jacking up the prices so we'll come home to a nice, happy inflation.
We'll fix them all right, too.
And trailing behind on the same list are the home front soldiers.
Hey, listen, you guys. See how you like this. There are men in the Navy who got commissions, although the only ship they have ever seen is a junior partnership.
That isn't funny. That's not funny at all. Not funny because that hate, that bitterness will become greater as the war goes on. Because that bitterness will be taken out on somebody. And it would be just too bad if it were taken out on the people of America. It would be just too bad if G.I. Joe came home and followed an American Hitler who promised him the things he will not find.
Well, what do you propose, then?
I'll tell you what I want. When I come home, I want to see a better America. What do I mean by that? I mean a society in which there are jobs for everybody, planned jobs with a decent living wage. I want better housing for me and my family. I want security, social and otherwise. I want you to think of human rights when you begin to reconvert, not just profits. I want a better educational system. I want a health program, medical care for me, my kids, and my family. I want a rehabilitation program. I don't want bonuses and pensions, but I do want the same kind of prosperity and peace that you now have in war. Just remember this. When we come home, we'll join our veteran societies, some the VFW and some the American Legion. If they don't work out, we'll form one of our own. But we'll be there with you. In every town. In every county. In every state. We'll be there. And we'll be waiting, 12 million of us, 3 times as many as the last time. Enough to make a better America. Or enough to destroy it.
This is Clifton Fadiman. The Johnson's Wax program, Words at War, has brought you a dramatization based on Willard Waller's new book, The Veteran Comes Back. Make no mistake about it. What you've heard tonight is no mere empty threat. The veteran is highly organizable. If he doesn't get justice from the people who have used him to fight the war, he'll become the tool not only of the demagogue, but the undercover organizations as well. The Ku Klux Klan has already started a campaign to win the support of a formidable army of veterans operating from secret headquarters in Detroit. The problem is grave, and the solution lies with us, the people of America. And now, before I tell you about next week's program, here's Jack Costello.
I've been thinking that in telling you about Johnson's Car New, perhaps I haven't made it clear enough how easy the job is. In the old days, to clean and polish your car was a pretty hard task. Took 3 or 4 hours. But with Car New, you do 2 jobs at once. Clean and polish with the same application. That's one reason it's so much quicker and easier. The other reason is that Car New is different. It's a liquid that dries on application to a powder. When you wipe off that powder, your car's finish looks very much like the day you saw it in the showroom. Of course, the best way to fully realize what I'm saying is to try Car New on your own car. This would be a very good week to do it. Why not ask your dealer for a package of Johnson's Car New, spelled C-A-R-N-U. Mr. Fadiman?
Next week on the Johnson Wax program, Words at War, we bring you One Man Air Force, the dramatic story of America's top airman, Don Gentile. Now, this is Clifton Fadiman inviting you to be with us next week at this time. Until then, goodbye.
Tonight's dramatization was written by Ben Kagan and featured Lamont Johnson. Music was composed and conducted by Morris Momorsky. The production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. Next week, listen to One Man Air Force on Words at War. Jack Costello speaking. This is the National Broadcasting Company. The Johnson Wax Program, Words at War with Clifton Fadiman. The makers of Johnson's Wax for home and industry, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, proudly present Words at War, bringing you another dramatization of an important war book. And here to introduce our program is one of the keenest judges of good books in America, Clifton Fadiman. Mr. Fadiman?
Good evening. Just a few years ago, a German with a trick mustache looked across the sea at us and sneered. "What have I to fear from America?" he chortled. "America is soft. Their youth is soft. How can they stand up against my young men, trained and hardened for war?" Did anybody agree with Herr Hitler? Yes, at the time, many Americans did. We couldn't see how our boys could possibly be a match for Germany's professional soldiers, for Japan's fanatical fighters. But what happened? Well, we'll see tonight. First, Jack Costello with a message from our sponsor.
Friends, it's so easy to put things off, isn't it? Take your automobile, for example. How many times have you said to yourself lately that it ought to be cleaned and polished? Well, why not get out a pencil and paper right now and make a note to buy a package of Johnson's Car New this week, tomorrow? It just takes an hour or two at the end of the day to give your car a thoroughgoing beauty treatment with Car New. This easy-to-use polish does two jobs at once. It both cleans and polishes with one application. When your car is washed, you apply Car New with the cloth, rubbing only as much as necessary to loosen the dirt. Car New dries to a white powder, and when you wipe off this powder, you will really be surprised to find that the finish shines like a mirror. It'll be some time yet before you'll be buying a new car, and even then, keeping up the finish with Car New will help your trade-in. Ask your dealer for Johnson's Car New, spelled C-A-R-N-U. Mr. Fadiman?
Tonight on the Johnson Wax program, Words at War, we bring you the story of one American fighting man. But perhaps in a way, it's the story of them all. Our book is called One Man Air Force. It's the personal story of Captain Don S. Gentile, who came off the high school football fields of Piqua, Ohio, to become one of America's top aces of the air. Take a look at him. There he is, the typical young American who proved Hitler and Tojo wrong. And how wrong.
Hey, look, there's Gentile riding at the head of the parade.
Yeah. Say, I remember that kid playing football for Central High.
Yes, Don Gentile was home from the wars, home in Piqua, Ohio, and his neighbors turned out in force to greet him.
I remember him flying that airplane of his around town. He was a crazy kid. He sure was.
23 years old and one of the big heroes of the war. You wouldn't have thought it, would you? He was a quiet kind of a kid.
Quiet on the ground, yeah. Ever see him fly an airplane?
They call him Gentle, I read in the papers, because he's kind of shy, you know.
Wasn't very shy when he tangled with those Nazis. Hey, look, he's blushing.
Yes, he was blushing. The conquering hero come home. He was the same kid, this Don Gentile. Didn't want to talk much, but they made him.
What's it like up there, Don? I mean, when you really tangle with the other fellow.
Oh, you mean a dog fight?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I guess it's simple in theory, anyway. You see the enemy, you grab for his coattails and hold on to them, put your guns up against his back pocket, and press the trigger. But while you're reaching for his coattails, he's reaching for yours. You make your grab, and he twirls out of the way and into position to make his grab, and then you twirl with a twist that'll put you in a fair way to grab him, and so on and so on. Grab, twirl, twist. Grab, twirl, twist for 10 minutes, maybe 15. Your machine against his, your mind against his, your body against his, until at last somebody is grabbed hold for good. And then the other fella starts to die.
Look, Don, answer me this, will you? How come you got to be a flyer? I mean, when did you get interested in it anyway?
Oh, gosh, I can't remember when I wasn't interested in flying.
Could I see a menu, Patsy?
Right away, you bet. What's good tonight, Patsy?
Everything. Everything is always good here.
You asked me about how I got started flying. Well, first I got to tell you about my dad and mother. They're really wonderful. Dad came over to this country when he was 14, and he got a job as water boy for the gas company in Columbus. Well, he and Mom gave me and my sister Edith a swell home, and he managed somehow to save money, too. Well, by the time repeal came, he had enough to do what he always wanted to do. Get a restaurant of his own.
Here, you Don. Take these menus over to the table, will you?
Sure, Dad. See, I was a bashful kid and not good at meeting people. That's why Dad had me come down to the restaurant to help out and meet people. Everybody liked Dad. They called him Patsy. He knew it'd be good for me to talk to people.
Say, Don.
Yes, sir?
What kind of a football team are you going to have over at Central High this year?
Oh, pretty good, I think. We got a lot of lettermen back. We ought to be pretty fair, I guess.
You're going out for the team, aren't you, Don?
Well, sure, I guess so.
You guess so? I thought you were nuts about football.
Oh, I like football a lot. I'm not nuts about it. What I'm really nuts about is... Well, anyway, we'll have a good team.
Well, what are you really nuts about?
Oh, nothing. Say, pardon me, I think Dad wants me.
You know, he's a funny kid. Always looks like he's got something on his mind.
Yeah, he does at that.
Hey, Dad, could I talk to you a minute?
Huh? Oh, sure, Don. What do you want?
Dad, I want to ask you something.
Oh, go ahead. What is it? You want to make a touch, maybe, huh? Take that little girl down the street out for a date, huh?
No, Dad. I want to take flying lessons out at the airport.
Oh, sure. Hey, what do you mean? You want to take a flying lessons? Airplane?
Yeah, Dad, in an airplane.
Hey, what's the big idea, Don?
Well, Dad, it's just something I want to do. I think it's something I just got to do. Dad, I want to fly more than anything in the world. I can get a half-hour's lesson every Sunday for $10.
$10 for 1/2 hour? That's a lot of money, Don.
Oh, you wouldn't have to pay it, Dad. I got the money saved. You know, the money you gave me for dates, well, I didn't spend all that. I saved most of it. I've got the money.
Oh, I see. I give you $10 to take that nice little girl to dinner and a picture show. What do? You take her for a walk.
Well, yeah, but she doesn't mind. Dad, can I?
I don't know. It's a lot of money. And it's dangerous, Don. You might fall down, have a crash. I don't like it.
Oh, it's not dangerous, Dad. Really, it isn't. It's not any more dangerous than driving a car. How about it, Dad? Will you let me do it?
I don't know. Your mama wouldn't like this, Don. I don't think she'd like it much at all. No, Don, forget it for a while. You're just a boy, 17 years old. Look, you play football, take that nice little girl out, you forget about this flying.
Well, I can't forget it, Daddy. It's all I'm interested in. I've got to do it.
Your mama would never stand for this flying.
Oh, you'll help me with Mom, won't you, Dad?
Well, I don't know. Better get that order over to the table.
Okay, Dad.
Flying. Now, listen, Mama, I don't like this any more than you do. But Don here, he says he's got to fly.
Yeah, Mom. Oh, now, don't look that way. Airplanes are safe, Mom. It's just knowing how to fly them, that's all.
Don, what are you talking about? Flying. Who do you think you are?
Oh, come on, sis. Don't you be against me. I'll give you a ride first thing.
Way you drive a car 100 miles an hour, I wouldn't ride in any airplane with you.
Ah, you're scared.
Edith is right.
Oh, Mom. Mom, tell me it's okay. Is it okay?
No.
Dad.
The boy's got his mind made up, Mama.
Sure I have. Is it okay, Mom? Mom, is it okay? Oh, Mom, don't cry. Please, Mom, will you? Oh, please, Mom, don't cry.
All right now, Don. Go in for your landing.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jeffries.
Hey, watch those trees.
Don't worry, Mr. Jeffries. I see them. Thought I'd pick a few leaves off on the way down.
Don, no stunning. You only had 3 lessons.
Okay, Mr. Jeffries.
Oh, I tell you, I think I'll retire from the force.
What's the matter, Henny? Have you been ill?
No, I haven't been ill, but you know what's happened, don't you?
Why, no.
I've been chasing this Don Gentile lad in his father's automobile for a year, and now what's happened? He's learning to fly an airplane.
You think you're awfully smart, don't you, Don Gentile?
Oh, sis, lay off me, will you?
You know Mom's worried sick about you, don't you?
She'll get over it. Hey, listen, Edith, you coming out to see me solo Sunday?
No.
Boy, oh boy, this is a life. Woo! Mom, I soloed. I passed everything.
What's the matter? What are you hollering about?
I can fly a plane now. Mom, I soloed.
Sure, Mommy, solo.
Solo? What is this solo? Is it like singing?
Yeah, just like that. Like singing all by yourself, Mom. I flew all by myself. Just me and the plane. I flew around, I banked, and I turned, and I landed, and I took off again all by myself.
Yes, and Mr. Jeffrey says you're very reckless.
Ah, he's just kidding you, sis. I know what I'm doing.
Papa.
Mr. Jeffrey said he did fine, Mama. He said Donnie's a born flyer.
Oh, I was afraid of that. Don, tell me, what does this solo mean now?
Well, Mom, it means that I finished my lessons. I don't have to take any more.
Oh, that's good. It's all over. It's finished. We just forget the whole thing.
Oh, no, Mom, it's not all over. It's just beginning.
Just beginning?
Sure, Mom. Now I can fly by myself. Now I can get a plane of my own.
A plane of your own?
Oh, Mom, don't cry.
No.
Mom, I just gotta fly.
What's the matter? Are you a pigeon? Nobody's just got to fly.
I do, Mom. Really, I do. I'll never be happy doing anything else. That's all I want to do in this world.
Don, it's dangerous.
No, Mom.
I'll be afraid all the time, Don. I'll worry every minute. Maybe you'll be afraid too, Don. It'll make you nervous up there so high.
No, Mom. That's just it. Please try to understand. I'm more afraid on the ground. I'm more nervous of things on the ground. The air, Mom. The air to me is what the ground is to other people. I don't feel sure on the ground. In the air, I feel sure of everything. Flying, Mom, is like fresh air to me. It's like food when I'm hungry. Like strength when I'm weak. Mom, I've got to fly. I've got to have a plane of my own.
Papa.
I don't know, Mama. Maybe we better get him the plane. We don't understand these things. Looks like these modern kids, so they just got to fly.
Oh, thanks, Dad. Thanks.
Excuse me, please.
Edith, where are you going?
I thought I'd better go out and warn the neighbors. Don Gentile is getting a plane of his own. They better start ducking.
Oh, Mom, don't cry.
This is Clifton Fadiman speaking. Tonight on the Johnson Wax program, we're bringing you a dramatization based on the book One Man Air Force. Primarily, it's the story of one of America's top fighting aces, but in a larger sense, it's also the story of all American boys who fight this war for freedom. So far, we've heard how Don Gentile learned to fly back in Piqua, Ohio, and finally persuaded his parents to let him have his own plane. Now we resume his story.
Look, Dad, isn't she a beauty?
I don't know.
An Aerosport for $450. Dad, it's a bargain.
It's a lot of money.
Oh, not for an airplane, Dad. Stand back a little bit. Now, watch me take her off.
I don't know if I've done the right thing.
Ah, sure you have. Well, here I go.
Not too fast to Don.
Okay, Dad.
Don, you go see who it is. Huh?
Sure thing, Mom. Oh, hello, Officer Haney. How are you?
I'm sick, if you want to know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Look here, Don Gentile. There was an airplane flying around the town today. It almost scalped the mayor. It pretty near took off the steeple of the First Presbyterian. It blew in the curtains on Betty Leverage's house. It knocked over the flowers in Margie Dill's garden.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Well, now, who could have done that? Did you get the number of the plane?
How can I get the number of a plane that's going maybe 900 miles an hour?
Oh, that's too bad. Then you don't know who it was.
Will you cut it out, Don, before you wreck the whole town?
Hey, sis, how about taking a ride with me, huh?
Ride with you in that plane of yours? Never. Don, everybody's talking about the way you fly. You've got Mother worried sick. Why do you have to do that?
Oh, I don't take any chances, Edith.
Well, if you ask me, you're just plain nuts.
I guess I was in a way, but believe it or not, I wasn't trying to show off. Driving fast in my father's car and flying low, stunting, putting my brain and my power over a machine against death and telling death, catch me if you can. See, that was the kind of competition I needed to make myself feel alive. I was never nervous or afraid or felt in danger, even when I zipped a wing under the very nose of death. I guess I was crazy, but I couldn't help it. And then on September 1st, 1939, the big news came.
The Germans invade Poland.
Well, listen, Mom, Dad, you gotta listen.
No.
Don, your mom is right.
Mom, Dad, listen.
No, you can't do it.
No, Don.
But look, it's war, isn't it? I'm going to be called. I won't have any choice of service.
That's good. Then you will be on the ground.
Well, sure, Mom, that's just the trouble. I gotta be in the air.
Don, listen, you can't be in the air. You gotta have a college degree to get in the Air Force.
But that's just what I mean, Dad. I can't get in the American Air Force because I haven't been to college, but I can get into the Canadian Air Force.
No, Canada.
Oh, but, Mom, don't you see? That'll give me a chance to fly. I'll have a better chance of staying alive if I fly.
Fly. You talk of nothing but a fly.
Why? I guess that's just the kind of guy I am, Mom. It's airplanes or nothing with me. Anywhere else, I'll be a round peg in a square hole. Put me in an airplane, I can make something out of myself. That's why I gotta go to Canada, Mom. I gotta fly.
I tell you, nobody's got to fly.
I do, Mom. Really, I do. Please, look, I can go up to Canada and get to be a pilot, and then when we get in the war, I can transfer to our Air Force.
But, Don, we're not yet in this war.
We will be, Mom. We can't help but be.
Okay, then you wait.
I can't wait, Mom. Don't you see? Dad, will you tell her, please?
No, Don. No, this time she's right. You stay at home. See what happens. Stay at home, boy.
Oh, Dad. Well, all that year, while millions of young guys were fighting the Battle of Britain, I was fighting the Battle of Piqua, Ohio. But finally... Oh, Mom, you said you wouldn't cry.
Don't go, Don. Don't go.
Please, Mom, I've got to.
Don, you're a heel.
Ah, sis, you...
But a kind of a wonderful heel. I'll say goodbye now.
Goodbye, sis. Write to me, huh?
You folks better be getting off. We leave in just a minute. Better hurry.
All right. Come, Mom. Say goodbye to Don.
Yeah, Mom. Kiss me goodbye.
No, I want to go.
Mom, you gotta go. The train's leaving in a minute.
Mama, say goodbye.
No.
Madam, please. You'll have to get off the train or else buy a ticket.
Ticket? What do I care about a ticket? My boy is going off the water, been shot at in airplanes. I won't let him go. This is not his war. No, I won't get off the train until he does.
Mama.
Madam.
Doctor, hold the train just a minute. She'll get off. Go ahead, Dad, Edith. I'll talk to Mom.
All right. I wait outside.
All right, Don. Goodbye.
I can't hold up trains for anybody. I'll give you one more minute.
Mom, listen to me. I don't want to hurt you. This is something I gotta do. I'm a flyer. They need flyers. They need every flyer they can get. Look, Mom, this is bigger than any of us. We gotta stop them. Somebody's gotta stop them or there won't be anything left at all for any of us. I've got something our side needs, Mom. I've got to fly and help stop them.
They'll shoot you.
Oh, no, they won't, Mom. Huh? They won't shoot me because I'm better than they are. Oh. Believe me, Mom. They won't get me. Oh. Believe me.
All right, Don. May God bless you.
Gentile got his first today.
Gentile got another. Gentile got his fifth today.
The Huns were smart, most of them. I remember running up against one who was too cagey for me. Well, I figured if you can't win by matching your brain against the other guys, then try matching your body. So I went into a dive at 30,000 feet. I knew I'd black out, but I was betting what I had learned playing football in Piqua, Ohio, against what he had learned goose-stepping for Hitler. He had me cold up until then. Ha! He couldn't take it.
That's an even dozen for Gentile.
Okay, Johnny, here I come. Teamwork. That's what we had. When one guy was being clobbered by a Nazi pilot, there was always another guy ready to clobber the Nazi right back. It worked even when the team had been boiled down to 2 men. Johnny Godfrey and I spent 20 minutes over Berlin one night in March. Came out of there with 6 planes destroyed, to our credit. Johnny was always sitting on my tail, ready to knock down anybody who tried to bounce me off my kill. Swell guy, Johnny.
Hiya, General. That makes 18 for you.
Yeah, that's because I have you for squadron leader, Spike.
Thanks, kid. I've got some news for you. I'm being shifted.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, Spike. Gosh, I can't fly for anybody else.
Those are the orders, General. And here's another one. Get set for it. You're taking over.
Me? Oh, I can't be squadron leader.
Why can't you?
Oh, I'm not the type. I'm a kind of halfback, I guess. I can make the end runs, but I can't call the plays.
Listen, Gentle, you're a hot pilot, red hot. You want to make all the touchdowns. That's good. That's natural for a fighter pilot. But here's what you got to learn. You're going to have boys following you who aren't as hot as you are. Yet. Just remember that when you take them anywhere. Just remember it's not only your brains that are going to get knocked out, but the brains of the kids who are following you. You can do it, Gentle.
Okay, Spike. I'll do it. Spike was right. As squadron leader, I learned more than ever how important teamwork was. We put Spike's lessons into practice. And so, when the bell rang for the big fight against Hitler's Luftwaffe last February, we had as fine a team, I think, as any nation has ever been able to get together. And boy, I can tell you, I'm proud to be a member of it. Our boys had always been eager to fly, just as I had been, but now our enthusiasm was tempered with experience. Each man was confident he would survive because he believed in the team. Yeah, I remember once over Germany, after I'd run up my score to 30 planes destroyed, I came on 3 Messerschmitts sitting up ahead of me. Easiest shots I ever had. Then I saw a Hun clobbering a Mustang pal of mine. Well, I dropped the easy kill and I dove on the Hun. I didn't think about it. It was just a reflex action. Something the guys on our side do without thinking. It's just that feeling for team action. I know if I didn't have it, I wouldn't have come through.
Eisenhower's decorating Gentile today.
Congratulations, Captain. You've destroyed more enemy planes than any other American in 2 wars. Congratulations. You're a one-man Air Force.
Thank you, sir.
Will you look at that? The one-man Air Force is blushing.
Yes, he was blushing. Don Gentile, the ace, was blushing. He'd come home the same kid, shy, self-effacing, unsure of himself every place but with his own family, and in the air. So, here we have an American boy, Don Gentile, who hurled the Germans' lie back into their teeth. He was a match for any Superman. He was sold on flying, and he sold his father and almost everybody else on flying. He sold Hitler on his kind of flying. In fact, he sold everybody but his mother. And oh, by the way, would you like to meet Don's mother now? Maybe she's changed her mind about Don's kind of flying. Here's the mother of Don Gentile, speaking from Cincinnati, Ohio.
am just one American mother, just like millions for others from you. I am proud to my son, but the water, in the air, in the ground, on the sea, there are boys who fight to save all kind life of you know. I'd improve the down fly at first, but I understand now why he had to go to war. He and you sons are fighting for our homes. All I can say is, God bless them tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Gentile.
Next week on Words at War, Mr. Fadiman?
I'll tell you about next week's program in a moment, Jack. Right now, a good thought from our government for everyone who has a serviceman or woman overseas. You know what Christmas means to these young men and women. You know that Christmas won't be Christmas unless they get gifts from home in time for Christmas. The Army and Navy is accepting gift packages for mailing between September 15th and October 15th, without the usual written requests from the servicemen. But you're urged to do these things. Wrap your gifts securely in strong boxes. Address them properly with waterproof ink if you can, and just to be on the safe side, enclose the address on the inside of the package as well. Finally, mail as soon after September 15th as you can. If everyone waits until the last moment, a lot of gift packages won't reach their destinations in time. So start to work right now. Make sure this will be the best Christmas possible for every American boy and girl overseas. Thank you. Next week on the Johnson's Wax program, Words at War, we bring you a dramatization based on Rex Warner's latest novel. In this moving story entitled The Return of the Traveler, the spirit of a dead soldier returns to ask, "Why was I killed?" The answers he receives will give you a memorable half hour. Now, this is Clifton Fadiman inviting you to be with us next week at this time. Until then, goodbye.
Tonight's dramatization of One Man Air Force was written by Gerald Holland and featured Lawson Zerbe as Don Gentile. Mrs. Gentile was heard tonight in person, speaking from Cincinnati, Ohio. The music was composed and conducted by Morris Momorsky, and the production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. Next week, the makers of Johnson's Wax bring you a dramatization of The Return of the Traveler on Words at War. Jack Costello speaking. This is the National Broadcasting Company. The Johnson Wax Program, Words at War, with Clifton Fadiman. The makers of Johnson's Wax for home and industry, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, proudly present Words at War, bringing you another dramatization of an important war book. And here to introduce our program is one of the keenest judges of good books in America, Clifton Fadiman. Mr. Fadiman?
Good evening. Tonight's dramatization is the next to the last in the current sponsored series of Words at War. In 2 weeks, your old friends Fibber McGee and Molly return to this spot on the dial. This evening, we present a thought-provoking program in this series which has dedicated itself to bringing you the opinions and the stories of writers who've had a close-up view of a world at war. But before our story, a word from Jack Costello.
You know, friends, there are probably more good reasons today than ever before for taking proper care of the finish of your automobile. The older it gets, the more it tends to break down and even rust at vital spots. Secondly, one of these days you'll be ready for a trade-in, though that's still some way off. But it's certainly wise to keep the paint job in good condition, which you can do by occasionally cleaning and polishing your car with Johnson's Car New. One thing you like about Car New is that it's relatively easy to use. Car New both cleans and polishes with one application, 2 jobs at once. It's a liquid which dries on application to a powder, and when the powder is removed, it takes the dirt and road grime with it, leaving a satin-smooth finish that's beautiful and easier to keep clean. I'm sure I don't need to add that you and your family will enjoy your car lots more when it's cleaned and polished. Remember, your dealer still has Johnson's Car New, spelled C-A-R-N-U. All right, Mr. Fadiman?
We on Words at War are more than a little proud of the books which we've been able to dramatize for you. We feel that these books have shown how Americans have reacted to and have helped put down tyranny all over the world. We're proud of these stories which have told of Americans winning a war.
You seen the papers lately, mister? The papers say we're winning the war. Well, maybe they're talking about another war. I don't know. I'm talking about the war we're fighting to make this world a cleaner, safer, decenter place for us and our kids to live in. That the war you mean? Well, then I say we're losing that war. Sure, we've cracked the Siegfried Line, but there are other battles that are important, too. I say we're losing them because our newspapers carry pictures of zoot suiters graduating from reform school to Sing Sing instead of from grammar school to high. We're losing the war because there are 14 and 15-year-old girls serving their vicious apprenticeship, picking up servicemen in bar rooms. I say we're losing because our slums are getting bigger instead of smaller, more numerous instead of fewer, more corrupt and disease-ridden and gang-run than the day the war started. These are battles we're losing, mister. And listen, there are pickets fighting with police, and management fighting with labor, and whites fighting with blacks, and your dollar fighting with my dollar. And you say we're winning the war. Well, we're not. That's proof. We're losing. We're losing. We're losing.
Sounds like a fanatic, doesn't he? Well, maybe he's excited, but he's not far wrong. No, those conditions do exist. And unless we're careful, those battles will be lost. And it doesn't take a fanatic to get excited about them either. A very cultured gentlewoman got excited about them, too, because she made a trip through America and saw them herself. So excited that she wrote a book about it. For she saw in these bitter battles a portent of evil for America's future. The lady is Mrs. Agnes E. Meyer. The book is Journey Through Chaos. It's a picture of America in a battle for its future and for its life.
Yes, I saw the things our friend talks about. I saw race tensions in Detroit and slums in every city. I saw delinquency from Buffalo to San Francisco.
Well, then why don't you get excited? Tell them about the shack cities and the packing box cities and the tent cities and the hovels of Pascagoula with one outhouse for 10 families and the basement rooms of Detroit and Buffalo and Washington, D.C. with 2 families in a room and men sleeping in shifts. Tell them about the epidemics lying in wait, the crime that's born, the death that creeps out of those slums.
Yes, I saw those things, too. And I asked, why must people live like that? Why must American harbor these slums, clustered around the factories like fungi around a tree trunk, poisonous and spreading, always spreading? Why must we tolerate these huge stew pots, cooking up race riots and disease, delinquency and crime? Why aren't these shack cities, these reeking slums, cleared out? Why aren't decent, livable homes built for these people? So I asked, and I got my answers.
Ah, nuts. Most of these people are hillbillies. They've always lived that way.
Don't you know there's a war on? There's no time, no materials to build homes for these people.
Forget it. Some people are made for the slums.
So spoke the careless ones, the unidentified mass of the people who don't think and don't care. But there were others who did identify themselves, others who do think. And how?
Madam, I am a politician, but I've got my duty like anybody else. Why, if we build homes for those workers, you know what's going to happen? We're going to be left with a ghost town when the war's over. That'll mean lower real estate values. And lower real estate values mean less real estate taxes for the city treasury. And, well, after all.
How do you like that reasoning? You know any politicians who think like that? Well, maybe this next man is your neighbor.
Look, I'm a regular resident of this town. If we build homes for these outsiders, you know what's going to happen? The war will end and boom, they'll sit right in those houses and go on relief. That means more of a tax load on us old residents. I say leave the slums as they are, and when the war's over, those folks will go back where they belong.
Go back where they belong. Uh-huh. And now your reason, Mr. Resident of Washington, D.C.?
Well, we know those 10-in-a-room alley slums are a disgrace to the capital of the United States, but we can't do a thing. If we start investigations, we would have to condemn most of these houses. And those evicted families would just move in with others and make it more crowded still. Or they'd sit in the street and say the district government was anti-this or anti-that. That's why we're leaving well enough alone.
Well, how do you like that? And it's all true, I assure you. But wait. Before you get too angry with those cynical people, let me tell you something else that's equally true. There are enlightened American communities that have tried to solve the slum problem. One of them is Mobile. In that town, they built a housing project, a settlement of comfortable, clean, airy homes for the factory slum dwellers. And when some of the slum families were offered these homes, well, their answers were hard to believe.
Why didn't you leave us alone?
But don't you understand, sir? The government has built these homes for people just like yourselves. They're clean and nice, and you'll like living there.
Don't want to move. Fact is, they ain't gonna move.
Please, Mrs. Slocum, maybe you can make him see. Don't you want a cleaner place for you and your children? A real stove instead of this can of gasoline?
No, we don't want to move no place where they're going to stick their nose in our business. Oh, we know the law. We know they want us to move into them new houses so they can tell us what to do.
But that's not true. Look, you just gotta move.
We know our rights. This is a free country. We don't have to move unless we wanna, and we don't wanna. Yes, sir, this is a free country. By gosh, if I ain't nothing else, I'm a free man. So go on, get out of here, leave us alone.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, really happened. Yes, they can refuse to move. Yes, they can live in squalor. It's their American right. And many of them intend to continue exercising that American right. These groups have banded together in war-center slums because of zoning laws, because of excessive rents elsewhere, and often because conditions in our country have accustomed these people to that kind of life. And a single word lies at the root of the congestion problem. Can you guess what it is? Try to guess. It's an important word. I was aware of it again and again as I traveled through America, as I came face to face with the problems of delinquency and class antagonisms and labor management troubles. That one little word lies at the root of terrible problems which have erupted in Chicago, in Detroit, in cities unnumbered. And as the slums grow, so too do the other evils grow. Disease, class quarrels, and most deadly of all for America's tomorrow, delinquency.
Delinquency? Ha! Maybe being a woman you haven't seen the call houses with the 14-year-old girls in them. Maybe you haven't seen the police lineups with 16-year-old zoot-suiters up for rape and robbery and assault and car thievery. And how about the delinquency rates? Up 56%. And the roving gangs of razor club-toting youngsters on the streets of America. Somebody's to blame, and somebody should pay.
Yes, I decided someone was to blame and somebody should pay. But it looked to me as though the children would be the only ones to pay. Because when I started asking questions, I received a lot of same answers.
We have to tend to our war jobs. We can't keep track of our kids.
Give them a stretch and reform school. That'll straighten them out.
Yeah.
But most reform schools don't make better kids, just better criminals.
Oh, nuts. We're busy.
We're fighting a war.
After all, kids will be kids.
So I stopped talking to fathers and mothers. And in Buffalo and Cleveland and Portland and Mobile, I heard new catchphrases like latchkey kids and victory girls. And I went to the people who had invented these words, the police and the newspapers and the agencies fighting delinquency. And they invited me to the places that spawned delinquency. And I even went with them on their inspection tours.
There he is, officer. That's one of the gang that beat up my son. Don't let him get away. He's that's the one.
Hey, kid, we want to talk to you.
You ain't talking to me, cop.
Oh, yes, I am. Come here.
Let me alone.
Come
Let
here.
me alone. I'll mobilize you. I'll call my gang, you dirty cop.
You see, officer, he admits he has a gang. I know he's the one who beat up my son today because, look, he's wearing my son's watch chain.
Well, why should that pantywaist have a watch chain and a watch, and we can't have them? And another thing, we'll show these guys from across the tracks that they can't kick us around no more. We take what we want now.
We take what we want now. We take what we want now. Isn't that the birth cry of fascism? Or am I wrong? Maybe it'll be all right after the war when people are home more and out of the war factories and able to take care of their children. And then again, maybe they won't be able to wipe out the barroom mistakes of their errant girls. Yes, I was in a barroom, too, with a detective.
Hiya, baby. Have a drink on me?
Sure, I'll take a stinger.
Just a second, kid. How old are you?
What's it to you?
This badge is what's it to me. How old are you?
None of your business. This is a free country.
Well, suppose I guess 16. That'd make you too young to be in here. In fact, that would make you breaking the law.
Gee, I didn't know how young she was, officer. I wasn't trying to pick her up. I only offered her a drink. I didn't... I'll see you later.
Hey, you behind that bar. I'm arresting you for selling liquor to a minor. Here's your summons.
Hey, wait a minute. Do I have to ask for their birth certificate every time I sell a drink? Hey!
All right, don't push. I'm coming. Can't a girl have a little fun in this town?
Why don't you kids try having your fun at home?
Home? That dump. I haven't had a square meal or a clean bed since my old lady went to work in the aircraft factory. My neighborhood stinks, and my old man ain't been sober since Pearl Harbor. Besides, if I'm what you call a delinquent for hanging around these places, why ain't the older ones delinquent too? They run the joint.
There was the answer from the children themselves. Home wasn't worth going home to. And what's wrong with bar rooms and nightclubs if they're good enough for our folks? And I asked why there wasn't something done to take them out of the bar rooms. Give the children places of their own, like playgrounds and canteens. And of course, there were more of those familiar replies.
Well, of course, we'd like to build those things for the kids. But you find juvenile delinquency at its worst in war centers. And in a war center, we need the time and the space and materials for war work. First things first, I say. It's our patriotic duty.
I see. Then there were merchants, too, who encouraged children to stay out of school by offering them jobs. They asked me.
Can you blame me for trying to keep my business going? Help is so hard to get, I'll take anything.
Yes, anything. Even the seeds of America's tomorrow. But those seeds are going rotten, and they promise a crop of crime and moral blindness and disease. A fine crop from which to harvest the leaders of tomorrow's brave new world, to guard us against any possible dictators of the future. And again, that one little word had cropped up. Have you guessed yet what it is?
This is Clifton Fadiman. Johnson's Wax is bringing you an adaptation of Agnes E. Meyer's book, Journey Through Chaos. Perhaps many of you are shocked by the revelations made here. There are those who will say, and rightly, that there are bright spots in the picture, that there are cities which are pushing aside prejudice and self-interest to help stamp out the evils of borning in America.
And they would be correct, Mr. Fadiman. There are such bright spots. I saw them, like oases in the deserts. But they had to fight the same little word that I asked our listeners to search for behind delinquency, behind congestion. The word that forms the basis for another American evil, hatred of group for group.
Class hatred. Now you're talking about a real headache. Why, there are 10 cities in America right now just aching for race riots. Segregation and discrimination and pussyfooting politics. These things are dynamite, sister. And I tell you, in no time at all, they'll explode into death and destruction on 1,000 peaceful streets in this country.
And you know, I'm afraid that much of what our ranting friend says is true. I know. I saw it. And so, again I asked questions, and again I got my answers.
You gotta keep them in their place.
Maybe. But is their place the dirtiest slums in America?
You can't do anything for these people.
They've always lived like that.
Sure, I know. You want us to live next door to them.
And next you want us to move in with them.
Give them an inch and they'll take a mile.
That's right. How would they like to be over in Germany?
Wait up, lady. Don't listen to those platitudes. Those half-truths and half-lies have poisoned America's thinking too long. Tell the listeners the truth.
Tell them about the Jim Crow cards.
Yes, and don't forget the taboos against Negroes voting in the South.
And tell them how Germany and Japan sell the rest of the world on the story that our racial practices are exactly like theirs. And tell how colored races the world over believe it, because it's true.
And while we're talking, let me tell you a story I heard today.
Yes, I've heard those stories. There are hundreds of such stories around. Some true, some half-true. Some easily believed because they could be true. Yes, I've heard those stories. And I've seen Jim Crowism and segregation and discrimination. Stories about them have been around for years. But what actual good have they done toward solving our racial problem? Oh, there's no denying it. There is discrimination down south. There is injustice down south. But wait a minute, you Northerners. Don't sit back and smirk complacently about your southern neighbors. I want to tell you something that'll surprise you, and I'll defend and prove this statement at any court in the land. It is the South that is making the biggest strides toward the solution of the race prejudice problem, and the North that's making it in the opposite direction. I repeat, it is the South that is making the biggest strides toward the solution of the race prejudice problem, and the North that's moving in the opposite direction. Here's the kind of stuff you hear up north.
Listen, if we let these guys get uppity, they'll soon be taking our jobs. That's why we keep them out of certain jobs. We've got to protect those jobs for us. We've got to keep them in their place.
So, Mr. Northerner, look around you. The race prejudice problem is in your lap, and you're bungling it worse than the South ever did. And what is underneath it? The same word that caused the South's discrimination. I grew surer and surer of it as I neared the end of my trip. That one little word is the main reason for America's wartime trouble. It's the word which causes congestion to link itself with and give birth to juvenile delinquency, and which makes juvenile delinquency grow out of and at the same time promote race hatred. And then blanketing the whole, intertwined with, living side by side with those things, is the common fight, the all-American fight, which goes on in the homes of Shacktown and Sugar Hill, the mining towns of Pennsylvania and the factories of the Midwest. Management versus labor.
Now you're talking about the most serious problem we face today. Why, look at the strikes in this country. And look at the employers using the war effort as an excuse for stabbing at labor. And look at the petty squabbles and what happens to America's war effort while labor and management fight. There's absenteeism and broken contracts and refusal to arbitrate. And altogether one big mess.
Now, wait a minute. You can't condemn either management or labor with a blanket indictment. But it's also true. You can't travel through the boom towns of America without finding the evidence of too many fights between management and labor. Here a picket line, there a closed shop. Headlines of accusations against both sides. Demands for a National Service Act. And of course we read about it and fail to realize it, as one intelligent leader said.
The labor management problems and points of friction arising now would have taken 50 years to arise in the normal course of things. The war has telescoped time and made minor things pile up on each other, and so become more irritating and seem more serious.
But there are few who recognize this. Few of the people I talk to, anyhow.
There'll always be a fight between capital and labor.
But perhaps if both labor and management realize that one cannot do without the other...
Oh, go on. Labor is in the hands of the racketeers.
Oh, nonsense. Most labor leaders are honest and conscientious.
I tell you, industry isn't going to give an inch unless it has to.
And as I investigated and asked more questions, I realized here that in labor management relations, the vicious little word was clearer than ever. The word at the root of the nation's trouble was a part of the policy of both sides. For instance, in a squabble between a Midwestern union and a war industry, an argument arose.
You're the spokesman. All right, men. All you fellows with application cards okay, step over here for your physical examination.
We're not taking any physicals, Jim.
But it's new company policy. It's for your own good, you guys.
Our union voted no, Jim.
Well, boy, this is a good one. Physical examinations for your own good and your union turns them down? Why?
Well, I know it sounds silly and the papers will probably eat it up, but we're standing our ground. What if your doctors find TB among some of the men, or cancer, or something else?
Well, in that case, they shouldn't be working. You know that. They should be under a doctor's care.
Sure, but what if they have no money for a doctor's care? And after the war, labor ain't so scarce and industry can pick and choose. You think they're going to pick guys with TB and cancer and other stuff on their cards? No, brother. Sorry, we have to protect ourselves.
The word again. They have to protect themselves from the word. It underlies every move of management and labor. Have you guessed the word? Then listen, and I'll tell you. It's fear. Fear. Fear of management for labor and labor for management. Fear of motives and fear of moves and fear of unemployment and fear of poverty. Congestion and delinquency, class hatred, and the conflict between labor and management, intertwined and inseparable, and underlying them all one emotion, fear.
Do you think we want to live in the slums? Well, some folks who call themselves decent would probably mow us down if we tried to move into their pretty neighborhoods.
If we let them move in from the slums, they'll be left on relief rolls when the war is over. They'll push property values down. They'll ruin us.
Fear, mutual fear on both sides of the railroad track.
Oh, I want to take care of my kids right, but I've got a job in a war factory. It's the first time my family's been able to earn a decent living, and I can't give it up.
Fear of tomorrow in a million mothers' hearts. A willingness to take a chance with a child's fate just to earn a few dollars to put the family an extra jump ahead of the landlord or the butcher.
Yeah, give them an inch and they'll take a mile. We got to protect our jobs from them, because I hear they'll work for nothing. We got to keep them in their place.
Fear based on the color of the skin. Fear that the white man will try to take back the freedom won in wartime. Fear that the Negro will try to keep it. Fear of man for man.
Why should we workers give up privileges when our boys are fighting a war to preserve those privileges? That doesn't make sense.
Why should we let these union men walk in and tell us how to run our business? It's our business, our money. We want to run it our way.
So there is the picture I saw of America blocked and twisted by fear. People move or won't move because of fear. And they leave their jobs or won't leave their jobs because of fear. And they won't give in or won't give up because of that word, fear.
And now, Mrs. Meyer, can you tell us the answer to fear in America?
Yes, Mr. Fadiman. We can conquer anything in this country of ours if our hearts and minds are in the job. Look at the Army's magnificent victories. How do they do it? By teamwork. There's good teamwork in Cleveland and Oregon and Springfield, Mass., and in Wichita, too, and other cities as well. And there are industries that have never had a strike. Yet these islands of progress are set in an ocean of fear that cripples and retards progress the country over. And the future is shrouded in uncertainty. But teamwork and reason and understanding will banish that fear. Teamwork, working together, the fighting of fear by each individual American as he comes into contact with the problems which confront him. Those are the things which will wipe fear from the lexicon of freedom forever.
Well, Americans, you've heard another Words at War program, and while it's fresh in your mind, I'd like the privilege of adding a footnote. Like our other Words at War dramatizations, it's handled some pretty touchy stuff. It's pointed out things that some of us all too often are inclined to hush up. Don't talk about such things, we say. Keep quiet about them, and maybe they'll go away. But when we do that, we're like the man who continues to sit on a keg of TNT, hoping desperately that it won't blow up, or at least that it won't blow up soon. Well, the thing to do when you're forced to sit on a powder keg is to empty the powder out of it, and you can't do that by wishing. You've got to act. So don't stop with just applauding outspoken programs like Words at War. Read the books we dramatize. And then, when you're fully informed, add your might as an independent citizen to the effort now being made to make America a nation at which no foreign propagandist can point the finger of scorn. Thank you.
Mr. Fadiman will be back in just a moment to tell us about next week's show. But first, with summer officially gone, you'll be spending more time indoors, and your household problems will change a little. But there's one room where traffic never seems to let up, and that's your kitchen. Its linoleum floor surfaces come in for pretty hard wear, and they really need to be protected. They need the kind of care you can give them so easily with Johnson's self-polishing Glow Coat. If you protect them regularly with Glow Coat, they'll last 6 to 10 times longer. In addition, they'll always look bright and cheerful and sparkling, and their colors will endure. It takes very little effort to achieve these results because Glow Coat is self-polishing. It needs no rubbing or buffing. You simply apply Glow Coat and let it dry. If you're a regular Glow Coat user, you know what conservation means. If you're not, try Johnson's self-polishing Glow Coat this week, especially on your linoleum and asphalt tile floor coverings. And now what about next week's show, Mr. Fadiman?
Next week, ladies and gentlemen, we bring you a book with one of the most beautiful titles I've ever heard. Joseph Driscoll's Pacific Victory, 1945. About the only thing that could make the title more beautiful than it is would be to change the date to 1944. 1945. About the only thing that could make the title more beautiful than it is would be to change the date to 1944. Now, this is Clifton Fadiman inviting you to join us again next week when we bring you Pacific Victory, 1945.
Tonight's dramatization of Journey Through Chaos was written by Peter Harkins and featured Kay Strutzy. The production was directed by Anton Leader. Music was composed and conducted by Morris Momorsky. Next week, the Johnson Wax Company brings you another in the series Words at War, featuring another great wartime book, Pacific Victory, 1945. Jack Costello speaking. This is the National Broadcasting Company.